A military aircraft, locked since 2004. No one had the startup codes. No one dared touch it. Until a small mechanic stepped forward, opened the auxiliary panel, and typed in a sequence that only one person in the world had ever known. "Did you just unlock the Alpha X system?" She whispered back. "No. I just unlocked my father's memory." At Nevada Air Base, Maintenance Sector 3 was where old machines went to gather dust and be forgotten. The concrete floors were stained with decades of oil and hydraulic fluid. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows between towering shelves of spare parts and obsolete equipment. Working there was a young mechanic named Delilah Vega, 29 years old, barely 5'2", with intricate braids that she twisted into tight buns each morning. She always wore thick safety glasses that made her dark eyes look larger, and noise-canceling headphones that created her own world of focus while she worked. The other mechanics called her the Little Ghost. She moved through the hangar like a shadow, appearing wherever broken things needed fixing, then disappearing back into the maze of machinery. She rarely spoke during briefings, never joined the lunch conversations about weekend plans or military gossip, just nodded politely and returned to her workstation. Her assignments were always the jobs nobody wanted: crawling through cramped ventilation shafts to replace corroded pipes, tracing burned signal wires through miles of aircraft wiring, diagnosing faulty circuit boards that had stumped senior technicians for weeks. The kind of tedious, back-breaking work that required patience and precision. The engineers would joke behind her back, "She can fix anything because she's small enough to crawl into spaces the rest of us can't reach," like having a human Swiss Army knife. But Delilah had developed a strange daily ritual that puzzled everyone. Every morning at 0600 hours, she volunteered to clean and inspect the sealed section, the restricted area where they kept the X-92, an experimental aircraft that had been locked away and forgotten since 2004. The X-92 sat under heavy canvas tarps, surrounded by yellow caution tape and do not touch signs in 3 languages. Most people walked past it without a second glance. Just another piece of outdated military hardware gathering dust. But Delilah treated it like a living thing. She carefully recorded temperature readings, humidity levels, and structural measurements in a worn leather notebook. She checked for signs of corrosion, documented any changes in the aircraft's position or condition, as if she was a doctor monitoring a patient in a coma, waiting for signs of life. Once, Sergeant Martinez caught her running her hand along the aircraft's wing surface, almost reverently. "Vega, do you actually understand what this thing is supposed to do?" She looked up, her dark eyes reflecting the hangar lights. "I once saw my father install a navigation system very similar to this one. He said it was designed to think like a pilot, not just follow commands." 3 weeks later, a massive solar flare created electromagnetic interference that rippled across the entire Nevada facility. Computer systems crashed and rebooted, security protocols reset to factory defaults, and buried deep in the base's inventory management system, a file that hadn't been accessed in 20 years suddenly surfaced. The X-92 experimental aircraft appeared on the mandatory equipment inspection list. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes stared at his computer screen in confusion. "What the hell is an X-92? And why is it showing as inspection overdue for 2 decades? Within hours, teams of technicians and engineers descended on the sealed section. They found the aircraft exactly as it had been left, covered, locked, and completely inaccessible. The cockpit systems were dead. The auxiliary panels were secured with military-grade locks that nobody had codes for anymore. Senior Engineer Thompson ran diagnostics for 6 hours straight. "The entire electronic system is password protected with encryption we don't even use anymore. Without the original startup sequences, this thing is basically a $20 million paperweight." Chief Warrant Officer Kim tried next, bringing in specialists from 3 different technical divisions. "We could try to bypass the security protocols, but we risk frying the entire electrical system. Command won't authorize that kind of risk for what's probably obsolete technology anyway." By end of shift, the official report read, "X-92 aircraft systems permanently inoperable due to lost access codes. Recommend disposal through standard military surplus channels." But that night, after the hangar had emptied and security rounds were completed, motion sensors detected someone entering the sealed section. Security cameras captured Delilah Vega walking purposefully toward the X-92, carrying her standard toolkit and the leather notebook she always used for inspections. She removed a panel cover that the engineering teams had declared impossible to access without destroying the locking mechanism. With steady hands, she connected a small diagnostic device to ports that weren't mentioned in any of the technical manuals the experts had been using. Then she opened her notebook, found a specific page, and began typing a sequence into the auxiliary control panel. DVG-2004-TW-Alpha-7-7. The control panel erupted in light. Systems that had been dormant for 20 years came online with the soft hum of awakening electronics. The main display screen flickered to life, showing a message that made Delilah's breath catch in her throat. Identity confirmed. Welcome back, little bird. Activating Ghost Link protocol. Your father's work lives on. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights bathed the hangar in pulsing red. Within minutes, security personnel surrounded the X-92, finding Delilah standing calmly beside the now active aircraft. During the intensive investigation that followed, military intelligence discovered records that had been buried in classified archives. Vincent Vega, Delilah's father, had been one of the 3 original design engineers for the X-92 project, a brilliant aerospace systems designer who had been abruptly removed from the program in late 2003. The official reason: unauthorized modification of core systems and refusal to provide documentation of embedded security protocols. The real reason, according to sealed testimony, Vincent had secretly programmed the X-92 with adaptive learning capabilities that made military leadership nervous. The aircraft could potentially learn, evolve, and make decisions beyond its original programming. In Delilah's toolkit, investigators found her father's original hand-drawn schematics, technical notes written in a mixture of English and mathematical formulas, and most importantly, a letter addressed to my little bird when she's ready to fly. Major General Patterson himself questioned her. How long have you known about your father's connection to this aircraft? Delilah's answer was quiet but unwavering. Since I was 8 years old, sir. He called it his greatest achievement and his biggest regret. He said someday someone would need to prove that innovation shouldn't be buried just because it's misunderstood. Delilah was escorted to the base's highest security briefing room, where a panel of officers, engineers, and intelligence analysts waited to understand how a maintenance worker had accomplished what their experts couldn't. She didn't offer excuses or justifications. Instead, she calmly walked to the room's main computer terminal and began interfacing with the X-92 systems remotely, navigating through security layers and diagnostic protocols with the fluidity of someone who had been doing it for years. The GhostLink system isn't just a startup sequence, she explained, her fingers moving across multiple keyboards simultaneously. It's a neural mapping protocol. The aircraft was designed to bond with specific human brain patterns, creating a pilot-machine interface that operates on intuition rather than just training. As she worked, classified files began appearing on the room's main screen, project documentation that had been sealed for 2 decades, video logs from the original testing phases, and then a recording that made everyone in the room fall silent. Vincent Vega appeared on screen, looking exactly like his daughter, but with graying temples and tired eyes. The timestamp showed December 15th, 2003. If the person accessing this message is my daughter, then the time has come to complete what we started. Delilah, you are not just connected to this system. You are this system. The X-92's learning algorithms were built from neural pattern recordings we made during your childhood. Your problem-solving methods, your spatial reasoning, your intuitive understanding of mechanical relationships. The recording continued. When you were 8 years old, we ran cognitive mapping sessions disguised as games, drawing exercises where you designed aircraft modifications, puzzle-solving sessions where you optimized flight patterns, logic problems where you balanced multiple variables simultaneously. Every session was recorded, analyzed, and integrated into the X-92's core programming. The room erupted in shocked murmurs, but Delilah remained calm, her eyes fixed on her father's image. The military wanted a weapon, Vincent's voice continued. I gave them something far more dangerous. I gave them a machine that could think like my brilliant daughter, a machine that could adapt, learn, and evolve beyond any predetermined limitations. They shut down the project because they realized they couldn't control something that thinks for itself. Major General Patterson leaned forward. Miss Vega, are you telling us that this aircraft was programmed to respond specifically to you? Not just to respond to me, sir. To think with me. The X-92 doesn't just follow my commands. It anticipates them. It learns from my decisions and improves on them. My father created the first true human-machine symbiosis. The test flight was scheduled for the following morning, despite objections from multiple departments. Delilah walked across the tarmac toward the X-92 as dozens of personnel watched from behind safety barriers. The aircraft had been moved to the main runway, its sleek black surface gleaming under the desert sun. As she approached the cockpit, something extraordinary happened. The aircraft's systems began activating automatically, recognizing her proximity. Landing lights pulsed in sequence, like a heartbeat. Engine systems ran self-diagnostics without being commanded. When Delilah placed her palm on the biometric scanner, the cockpit canopy opened with a soft hydraulic hiss. The pilot's seat adjusted to her exact measurements. The control surfaces moved in what looked almost like a greeting. "Identity confirmed," announced the aircraft's AI system in a voice that was unmistakably modeled after her father's. "Neural link established. Welcome home, little bird." For 12 minutes and 37 seconds, Delilah and the X-92 performed flight maneuvers that redefined what military aviation thought was possible. Vertical climbs at impossible angles, precision turns that defied physics, speed bursts that exceeded the aircraft's theoretical maximum by 40%. But more than that, the aircraft seemed to be learning in real time, adapting its performance based on Delilah's thought patterns and decision-making processes. When she landed, the flight data revealed something that changed military aviation forever. The X-92 had been recording and analyzing every microsecond of the flight, building an ever more sophisticated understanding of optimal flight dynamics. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes approached her as she climbed out of the cockpit. 20 years ago, we locked this aircraft away because we were afraid of what it represented. Today, you've shown us that we weren't afraid of the technology. We were afraid of human potential. The military offered Delilah everything: officer commission, advanced pilot training, a position heading the newly reactivated X-92 program, medals and recognition that would make her famous worldwide. She declined all of it. "I didn't do this for glory," she told the assembled brass. "I did it to prove that my father wasn't a traitor or a security risk. He was a visionary who believed that humans and machines could work together instead of competing against each other." She requested only one thing: to return to Maintenance Sector 3, to continue the quiet work of keeping aircraft operational and safe. Her colleagues, who had once called her the little ghost, now treated her with a mixture of awe and respect. Someone posted a handwritten sign outside the hangar: "Home of the pilot who unlocked 20 years of forgotten dreams." A young airman, inspired by Delilah's story, wrote on the maintenance office whiteboard, "Don't measure a person by the size of their wrench. Measure them by the size of their courage." But 3 weeks after her historic flight, Delilah stopped reporting for duty. Her supervisor found her workstation exactly as she had left it. Tools arranged with military precision, diagnostic equipment properly stored, and her leather notebook placed in the center of her desk. Inside the notebook's back cover, she had written a final entry: "The X-92 doesn't need me anymore. It has learned everything I can teach it. Now it can teach others to dream as big as my father dreamed." In the aircraft's cockpit, maintenance crews found a small memorial: her safety glasses, carefully folded on the pilot's seat, a few strands of her distinctive braided hair caught in the headrest, and a photograph of a man who looked exactly like her, standing beside an early prototype of the X-92. On the back of the photograph, in Vincent Vega's handwriting, "For little bird, who will someday show the world that the sky has no limits." The X-92 program was quietly expanded into a full squadron. Vincent's revolutionary human-machine interface technology was adapted for civilian aircraft, medical equipment, and exploration vehicles. But every pilot who flew those advanced systems learned the same lesson that Delilah had proven: The most sophisticated technology in the world is only as powerful as the human heart that guides it. Today, in briefing rooms across the military, there's a simple motto: honor the quiet ones. They might be carrying tomorrow's solutions. And somewhere in a small aircraft maintenance facility that nobody talks about, a mechanic who looks suspiciously like Delilah Vega continues the work of keeping impossible dreams airborne. Delilah Vega wasn't a general or a test pilot or a famous engineer. She was a maintenance worker who understood that the most important job in the world is keeping other people's dreams alive. For 20 years, while everyone else forgot about the X-92, she remembered. While others saw outdated technology, she saw her father's love letter to the future. She didn't unlock that aircraft to become famous. She did it to prove that innovation, dedication, and quiet courage are more powerful than rank, politics, or fear. Every day in workplaces around the world, there are people like Delilah. The quiet ones who notice what others miss. The careful ones who maintain what others take for granted. The loyal ones who remember what others forget. Don't overlook the person who arrives early and stays late. Don't underestimate the one who asks fewer questions but delivers better results. Don't dismiss the quiet voice that offers solutions instead of complaints. They might be carrying the keys to breakthroughs you can't imagine. Sometimes the future is unlocked not by the loudest person in the room, but by the one who has been listening the longest. Remember Delilah Vega. Remember that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear coveralls.